You know that moment when you realize the person you thought loved you most in the world actually sees you as nothing more than an embarrassment? Yeah, that was me sitting behind a decorative pillar at my own sister's wedding, hidden away like some shameful secret. But what happened next changed everything, and honestly, I'm still processing it all. Stay with me because this story takes a turn nobody saw coming, least of all me. Hey everyone, welcome back to the channel. If you're new here, I share real-life stories about family drama, unexpected kindness, and those moments that make you question everything you thought you knew about the people closest to you. And today's story, this one hit different. It's about betrayal, humiliation, but also about the most unexpected act of kindness from a complete stranger that restored my faith in humanity. So grab your favorite drink, get comfortable, and let me tell you about the worst and somehow best day of my life. My name is Sophie, and my sister Melissa is 3 years older than me. Growing up, we were close, or at least I thought we were. She was the golden child, the one who could do no wrong in our parents' eyes. Perfect grades, perfect boyfriend, perfect life trajectory. Straight A student, captain of the debate team, accepted to her first choice university with a full scholarship. Me, I was the creative one, the dreamer, the one who took a little longer to find her path. I studied art and creative writing, changed majors twice, and took an extra year to graduate. But I never thought that mattered to Melissa. We shared secrets, stayed up late talking about our futures, painted each other's nails, and binged terrible reality TV together. She always told me I'd be her maid of honor when she got married someday. We even used to plan it together as teenagers, giggling over wedding magazines and Pinterest boards. Fast forward to 2 years ago. Melissa got engaged to Brandon, this guy from a wealthy family who worked in finance. The moment that ring went on her finger, something shifted. Suddenly, everything became about appearances, about status, about impressing Brandon's family and their country club friends. The sister who used to laugh with me about pretentious people suddenly became one of them. But I didn't think much of it. Wedding planning is stressful, right? I figured she was just caught up in the chaos and the pressure of planning a major event. The first red flag should have been when she announced her bridal party. I was expecting the phone call asking me to be her maid of honor. Instead, I got a text. A text. It said, "Hey Sophie, so I've decided to ask Brandon's sister Emma to be my maid of honor because it would mean a lot to his family. But you're still a bridesmaid, of course. Love you." I stared at that message for a solid 10 minutes, reading it over and over, hoping the words would rearrange themselves into something that made sense. Brandon's sister Emma, who Melissa had known for barely a year and who she'd literally complained about multiple times, calling her stuck up and fake, was going to stand beside her instead of me, her actual sister. I called her, trying to keep my voice steady. "Mel," I thought. We always talked about me being your maid of honor. Since we were kids, remember? She sighed like I was being difficult, like I was an annoying child asking for something unreasonable. "Sophie, you have to understand, Brandon's family is really important to us. His parents are paying for half the wedding. Emma being maid of honor makes things smoother with them, keeps the peace. You get it, right? You're still in the wedding. It's not a big deal. You were being a bit dramatic." Except, it was a big deal. To me, it was everything. This was the sister I'd looked up to my entire life, the one who promised we'd always be each other's person. But swallowed my hurt and said okay because that's what you do for family, right? You put their happiness above your own feelings. I told myself I was being selfish, that her wedding day wasn't about me, that I needed to be supportive. I pushed down the hurt and showed up with a smile. The months leading up to the wedding were a series of small cuts, each one individually manageable but collectively devastating. The bridesmaid dresses she chose were expensive, like $700 expensive, and when I mentioned I'd need to save up and maybe set up a payment plan, she rolled her eyes and said, "It's my wedding, Sophie. Everyone else can afford it." Why do you always have to make things difficult? The bachelorette party was at an exclusive resort spa that cost $1,500 per person for the weekend. And when I asked if we could do something more budget-friendly, maybe a local weekend getaway instead, she accused me of not caring about her special day, of trying to ruin her fun. Every dress fitting became an ordeal. The other bridesmaids would chat and laugh while I stood there, increasingly aware that I was the only one struggling to afford all of this. They talked about their matching designer shoes, their professional spray tans, their appointments with celebrity hairstylists. Meanwhile, I was picking up extra shifts at work just to cover the basic costs. Every planning meeting, every bridal shower, every event, I felt more and more like an outsider in my own sister's life. But I kept showing up. I kept smiling through gritted teeth. I kept telling myself that after the wedding, things would go back to normal. The week before the wedding, she called me. I was actually excited because we hadn't really talked much, just surface-level texts about wedding logistics and group chats with the other bridesmaids. I thought maybe she wanted to have a real conversation, maybe reconnect a little before her big day. "Hey Sophie, so I need to talk to you about something," she started, and my heart sank at her tone. That careful, walking on eggshells tone that meant something bad was coming. Brandon's family has a lot of important guests coming, like major important, business partners and society people, and we want everything to look absolutely perfect in the photos. We've hired the most expensive photographer in the state, and, well, the thing is, she trailed off and I waited, my stomach churning, knowing whatever was coming was going to hurt. "What's the thing, Melissa?" "Okay, so you know how you've put on some weight since we ordered the dresses. The alterations person said your dress is really tight now. And your skin has been breaking out lately, probably from stress, I know. But Brandon's mom mentioned that maybe you could sit this one out, or we could seat you somewhere less visible during the ceremony. Just for the photos, you know. We've spent so much money on the photographer, and we want everything to look cohesive and beautiful. You understand, right?" I couldn't breathe. Did my sister, my own sister, just suggest I was too ugly to be properly visible at her wedding? That my body, my face, my mere existence would somehow tarnish her perfect day? "Are you serious right now?" I managed to say, my voice shaking. "You want me to hide because I don't look good enough for your fancy photos?" "Don't make this dramatic, Sophie. It's not about that. It's not personal. It's just that this wedding costs more than most people make in a year, and we want everything to be perfect. The venue alone was $80,000. You understand, right? You'd be doing me a huge favor. You're still invited, obviously. We just thought maybe you could sit in the back during the ceremony and skip being in some of the formal photos. You could still come to the reception, just maybe not be in all the pictures." I should have told her no. I should have told her exactly where she could shove her perfect wedding and her perfect photos and her perfect life. But instead, I heard myself say, "Fine. Whatever you want, Melissa. It's your day." Because that's what a lifetime of being second best does to you. It makes you accept the unacceptable. It makes you believe that maybe, just maybe, you really are the problem. The day of the wedding arrived. I'd barely slept, going back and forth between rage and heartbreak all night, my mind replaying every moment of our childhood, trying to figure out where things went wrong. I showed up at the venue early because despite everything, some part of me still wanted to be helpful, still wanted to be the good sister. The venue was stunning, a historic mansion with manicured gardens and thousands of string lights, and everything you'd see in a wedding magazine spread. I found Melissa in the bridal suite, surrounded by her bridesmaids, the ones who'd made the cut, who were pretty enough and thin enough and acceptable enough to stand beside her. She saw me and her face did this thing, this quick flash of guilt before she plastered on a smile. "Sophie, you made it. Okay, so, Mom's gonna show you where you'll be sitting for the ceremony. We've got a spot all set up for you. Thanks so much for being understanding about all this. You're the best. Not come get ready with us, Not, "I'm so glad you're here." Not, "I missed you." Just directions to my assigned seat like I was a distant cousin she felt obligated to invite. I follow my mom through the venue, and with each step, I felt smaller and smaller. We walked past the rows of elegant white chairs set up for the ceremony, past the beautiful archway covered in roses and peonies where Melissa and Brandon would say their vows, past all the important guests who would have a perfect view, all the way to the very back corner. And there it was. A single chair, placed behind a massive decorative pillar. You couldn't see the archway from that seat. You could barely see anything except white marble and the backs of other chairs. My mother couldn't even look at me as she gestured to the seat, her eyes fixed somewhere over my shoulder. "Melissa thought you'd be more comfortable here," she said quietly, and I could hear the shame in her voice, but not enough shame to actually stand up for me, to say this was wrong. "More comfortable?" I repeated, my voice hollow. "She literally hid me behind a pillar, Mom. I'm her sister. It's just for the ceremony, honey. Please don't make a scene. You know how important this day is to your sister. She's been planning it for 2 years. Let's just get through today, and then we can talk about all this later." And then she left. She actually just walked away and left me standing there, staring at this chair behind this pillar, and something inside me just broke. I sat down because what else was I going to do? Leave, because a scene like everyone was so worried I might make Melissa's worst fears come true by being the embarrassment she already thought I was. So I sat there, alone, behind a pillar, at my own sister's wedding. Guests started filing in, laughing and chatting, dressed in their finest, excited to witness this beautiful moment. Women in designer dresses and men in tailored suits, all of them belonging here in a way I apparently didn't. The ceremony started. I could hear the music, that classic processional everyone uses, hear the officiant speaking about love and commitment and family, hear the occasional laugh or collective sigh from the guests as something sweet happened. But I couldn't see anything. I just sat there, tears streaming down my face, trying to be quiet so nobody would hear me crying. This was it. This was the moment I realized my sister didn't love me the way I loved her. Maybe she never had. Maybe I'd been fooling myself our entire lives, seeing a closeness that only existed in my imagination. And then someone sat down beside me. I quickly wiped my tears and looked up to see a guy, maybe early 30s, in a sharp charcoal suit with a navy tie. He had kind eyes and this expression of genuine confusion as he looked at the pillar, then at me, then back at the pillar. "Is this seat taken?" he asked, and I just shook my head because I didn't trust my voice not to crack. He sat down, was quiet for a moment as the ceremony continued somewhere beyond our view, then leaned over and whispered, "So, I'm guessing we're the black sheep section." Despite everything, despite the tears and the humiliation and the heartbreak, I almost laughed. "Something like that," I whisper back. "You?" "Groom's second cousin. Barely know the guy. Met him maybe twice in my life. Got invited out of obligation, I think. Family politics. You?" "Bride's sister," I said, and watched his eyes widen in genuine shock. "Wait, you're the bride's sister and you're sitting behind a pillar? That's..." He seemed to search for words, his face going through several expressions before settling on dismay. "That's really messed up. I'm sorry. Nobody deserves that, especially not from family." Those words, "I'm sorry," from a complete stranger, made me start crying again. I tried to hold it in, tried to keep quiet, but I couldn't. This random guy I'd never met was showing me more kindness and compassion than my own family had in months. He didn't say anything else, didn't ask invasive questions or tell me to look on the bright side. He just reached over and took my hand, gave it a gentle squeeze, and sat there with me. This stranger, holding my hand behind a pillar while my sister got married a few yards away, sharing this moment of isolation with me so I wouldn't have to be completely alone. We sat like that through the entire ceremony, his hand warm and steady in mine. When I heard the officiant say, "You may kiss the bride," and the guests erupt in applause, he squeezed my hand again. "You okay?" he whispered. I nodded, though I wasn't sure I was. The ceremony ended, and the guests started moving to the reception area, another stunning space with crystal chandeliers and floor-to-ceiling windows. The stranger, whose hand was still holding mine, turned to me fully. "I'm James, by the way, and I'm going to take a wild guess that you probably don't want to go to this reception." I let out a shaky laugh. "Is it that obvious?" "Listen, Sophie, right?" I nodded, wondering if Melissa had mentioned me at all, or if he'd overheard someone say my name. "I don't know your whole story, but I know what it looks like when someone's been treated like they don't matter. And I also know a great pizza place about 10 minutes from here that makes the best margherita pizza you'll ever taste. What do you say we get out of here? No obligation, no pressure. But sitting through a reception where you've been made to feel unwelcome sounds like torture." I should have said no. I should have gone to the reception, kept up appearances, been the good daughter and sister everyone expected me to be. But something in me just snapped. All the months of swallowing my hurt, of making myself smaller, of accepting crumbs of affection from people who should have loved me unconditionally, it all came crashing down. You know what? Yes, let's go. Let's absolutely get out of here. We left, just walked right out of that venue, past the perfectly manicured gardens and the valet parking and the ice sculpture in the shape of swans, and the relief I felt was immediate and overwhelming. Like I'd been holding my breath for months and could finally exhale. James drove us to this little family-owned pizza place that looked like it hadn't been updated since 1975, with checkered tablecloths and Frank Sinatra playing on an old jukebox, and it was perfect. We ordered a large pizza, half margherita and half pepperoni, and I told him everything. The whole sad story just poured out of me. About growing up in Melissa's shadow, always being the other daughter, the one who didn't quite measure up. About the maid of honor situation and how it felt like a slap in the face. About the expensive dresses and the bachelorette party I couldn't afford and feeling like an outsider every event. About that phone call where my own sister told me I wasn't pretty enough to be visible at her wedding. About every little cut and dismissal that led to that chair behind that pillar. He listened to all of it, didn't interrupt, didn't try to defend Melissa or make excuses like everyone else in my life always did. He let me talk until I had nothing left to say, until I was exhausted from finally speaking my truth out loud. When I finished, he was quiet for a moment, then said, "You deserve so much better than that. You know that, right? That's not normal family behavior. That's cruelty." I shrugged, suddenly embarrassed by how much I'd dumped on this stranger. "I don't know. Maybe she's right. Maybe I am an embarrassment. Maybe I'm too sensitive." "Stop! Right now, stop that," he said firmly but kindly. "Nobody who actually loves you would treat you that way. Not your sister, not your parents. Nobody. You're not an embarrassment. Your sister is embarrassed by her own cruelty, and she should be. What she did was wrong on every level." We talked for hours after that. The conversation shifted from my family drama to life in general. He told me about his own family issues, about being the creative one in a family of high-powered lawyers, about choosing to be a high school art teacher instead of following the family path into corporate law. His parents hadn't spoken to him for a year after that decision. We talked about dreams and disappointments and the weird, suffocating pressure of family expectations. We discovered we both loved old movies and terrible puns and used bookstores. Somewhere in that conversation, sitting in a run-down pizza place in my bridesmaid dress, that was apparently too tight, eating cheap pizza with a complete stranger, I felt more seen and understood than I had in years. Maybe ever. James didn't look at me and see someone who didn't measure up. He just saw me, Sophie, a whole person worthy of kindness and respect. My phone had been buzzing all evening, vibrating against the table like an angry hornet. I finally looked at it around 8 o'clock. 43 missed calls, dozens of text messages, most from my mother, some from other relatives, even a few from Melissa. The messages from Melissa ranged from angry to panicked. "Where are you? You're ruining my reception. How could you do this to me? Everyone is asking about you and I look like an idiot. People are talking, Sophie. Get back here." And then, the kicker, "You're so selfish. This is MY Day and you had to make it about you. I knew you'd do something like this. You always have to ruin everything." I showed James and he actually laughed, a sharp, disbelieving sound. "She's mad at you. She literally hid you behind a pillar, and she's mad at you for not sticking around to be further humiliated." That's some next-level narcissism right there. I turned off my phone. For the first time in my life, I stopped trying to be the understanding one, the accommodating one, the one who puts everyone else's feelings first at the expense of my own mental health. James and I left the pizza place and just drove around, talking and laughing about everything and nothing. He showed me his favorite spots in the city, places I'd never been despite living here my whole life. This little independent bookshop that stays open until midnight, filled with floor-to-ceiling shelves and cozy reading nook. A park with the best view of the skyline, where the city lights sparkled like stars. A vintage record store where the owner's cat slept on the counter. At some point, we ended up at the waterfront sitting on a bench, watching the lights reflect off the water. The night had turned cool, and James gave me his jacket without me having to ask. We sat in comfortable silence for a while, just being, not needing to fill every moment with words. "Can I tell you something crazy?" I said eventually. "This has been one of the best nights of my life." James smiled, his face illuminated by the streetlights. "Same here, actually. Though I feel like I should feel guilty about that considering the circumstances." "Don't. If anything, thank you. You saved me tonight. I was drowning back there and you threw me a lifeline. You saw me when everyone else was looking away." He turned to look at me directly, his expression serious. "Sophie, I'm going to give you my number. And I really hope you use it. Not because I expect anything, but because I think you need people in your life who see your worth. And I see it. I saw it the moment you looked up with tears in your eyes and still tried to smile, still tried to be polite. That's strength. That's grace. Don't let anyone make you believe otherwise." We exchanged numbers. He drove me back to my apartment around midnight, walked me to my door like a gentleman from an old movie. He gave me a hug that lasted just long enough to feel meaningful, his arms solid and reassuring around me, and made me promise to text him so he'd know I was okay. I walked into my apartment, still in my bridesmaid dress, makeup ruined from crying, and felt lighter than I had in months. Maybe years. The next morning, reality hit. My phone had been turned off all night, and when I turned it back on, it literally wouldn't stop buzzing. Voice messages, texts, missed calls, the notifications just kept coming. My mother wanted to know how I could abandon my sister on her special day, how I could be so thoughtless and cruel. My father said I'd embarrassed the family in front of important people, that I'd made us all look bad. Various relatives weighed in with their opinions on my selfishness and immaturity, most of them people who hadn't bothered to have a real conversation with me in years, but suddenly had lots to say about my character. And Melissa? She sent me a long, scathing message about how I'd ruined her wedding, how people were gossiping about the bride's sister disappearing, speculating about family drama, how I'd made her reception awkward and uncomfortable. She said I'd always been jealous of her, that this was proof of my petty, vindictive nature. She called me names I won't repeat. She said I was dead to her, that she never wanted to see me again, that I was no longer her sister, that she regretted ever including me in her life at all. You know what I did? I wrote back one message. Just one. I thought about it for an hour, wrote and deleted several versions, and finally settled on this. You hid me behind a pillar at your own wedding because you thought I wasn't pretty enough for your photos. You told me to sit alone in the back, out of sight, because my appearance might ruin your perfect day. You treated me like something to be ashamed of. I'm done making myself smaller so you can feel bigger. I'm done apologizing for existing. If I'm dead to you, then I'm finally free. Goodbye, Melissa. Then I blocked her number. Blocked my parents too. Blocked anyone who sent me messages blaming me instead of asking if I was okay, if I was hurt, if I needed support. I was done. Just completely done with all of it. I texted James, told him I'd taken his advice about surrounding myself with people who see my worth, that I'd cut off my toxic family. He called me immediately and we talked for 2 hours. He told me I was brave, that what I did took real courage. We made plans to get coffee that weekend. That was 6 months ago. James and I have been dating for 4 months now. Turns out, finding someone behind a pillar at a wedding where you're both outcasts is actually a pretty solid foundation for a relationship. We took things slow at first, just coffee dates and walks in the park, getting to know each other without the intensity of that first night. But the connection was there, real and growing stronger every day. He's met my friends, the real ones, the ones who were furious when they heard how Melissa treated me and who rallied around me in the aftermath. I've met his family, and his mom hugged me for 5 minutes straight when she heard the whole story, told me I was welcome at their table anytime. His sister added me on social media and sends me funny memes. For the first time, I understand what it feels like to be welcomed into a family without conditions. I haven't spoken to Melissa or my parents since the wedding. Part of me feels guilty about that, the part that was trained from childhood to prioritize family above all else. But a bigger part of me feels free, genuinely free in a way I never have before. I'm in therapy now, working through years of people pleasing and accepting crumbs of affection from people who should have loved me unconditionally. I'm learning that setting boundaries isn't selfish, that demanding to be treated with basic human dignity isn't asking too much, that I'm allowed to protect my peace. A few weeks ago, I got an email from Melissa. Not an apology, mind you. She wants to put this behind us and move forward because family is family. She says she might have overreacted in the heat of the moment, that wedding planning was incredibly stressful, and she wasn't herself. She says we should just forget about it, that holding grudges isn't healthy, that mom and dad miss me. No acknowledgement of what she actually did. No real apology. No accountability. I haven't responded. I don't know if I will. Jane says I should do whatever feels right for me, that there's no timeline for forgiveness, and that reconciliation without accountability is just enabling bad behavior. My therapist says the same thing. And honestly, I'm not ready. Maybe I never will be. And I'm learning to be okay with that. The thing is, I'm happy now. Genuinely happy in a way I wasn't before, in a way I didn't even know was possible. I started painting again, something I gave up years ago because it wasn't practical enough, because Melissa used to roll her eyes at my art projects and call them a waste of time. Now my apartment is full of canvases and half-finished paintings, and James loves every single one. I'm working on building a life filled with people who celebrate me, not people who tolerate me as long as I make myself small enough. James and I are talking about moving in together. I'm applying to go back to school for art therapy, combining my love of creativity with helping people. I'm building a future that's mine, not one defined by trying to live up to impossible standards or competing with a sister who never saw me as anything but a threat. That chair behind the pillar at Melissa's wedding was rock bottom for me. But it was also the catalyst, the moment I finally saw the truth about my family and about myself. Sometimes you need to hit rock bottom to realize you've been settling for way less than you deserve, accepting treatment that no one should accept. So here's what I want you to take away from this story, what I wish someone had told me years ago. If someone makes you feel like you need to shrink yourself to fit into their life, they don't deserve a place in yours. Not your sister, not your parents, not anyone. Your worth is not determined by how much space someone else is willing to give you. You deserve to be front and center in your own life, not hidden behind pillars, literal or metaphorical. And sometimes, the worst moments lead to the best things. If Melissa hadn't hidden me behind that pillar, I never would have met James. I never would have found the courage to walk away from people who hurt me. I never would have started this journey of learning to value myself, of understanding that I'm worthy of love and respect just as I am. To anyone watching this who's been made to feel less than, who's been hidden away or pushed aside or told they're too much or not enough, please hear me, you are worthy exactly as you are. You don't need to change yourself to earn love. The right people will see you, really see you, even behind a pillar, and they'll take your hand and lead you somewhere better. The right people won't ask you to dim your light so they can shine brighter. If you made it this far, thank you for listening to my story. It felt good to get it all out there, to own my truth and share it with people who might understand. If you've experienced something similar, if you've been the black sheep or the scapegoat or the one who's never quite good enough, drop a comment below. I read every single one, and this community we're building here is all about supporting each other through the messy, complicated reality of family and relationships. You're not alone. Your experience matters. Your feelings are valid. Hit that like button if this story resonated with you, and subscribe if you want to hear more real talk about life, family, and finding yourself when everything falls apart. I post new videos every week, and your support means everything to me. It's how I know these stories matter, that sharing our truth can help others feel less alone. And to that stranger named James who sat down beside me behind a pillar and changed my life, if you're watching this, I love you. Thank you for seeing me when I felt invisible. Thank you for taking my hand and reminding me I was worth more than how I was being treated. You gave me the courage to save myself. Take care of yourselves, everyone. Remember your worth. Stand up for yourself even when it's hard, especially when it's hard. Surround yourself with people who celebrate you, not people who tolerate you. And I'll see you in the next video.